Hey everybody, this is Bill. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking college football. We're going to do a preview of the Big Ten Conference. Now this is the last year we're going to play football in the Big Ten as we're doing it this year. Things will change with UCLA and USC coming over. But we're going to take a look at the Big Ten, going to give you our breakdown of what to expect in 2023, so join us. We're going to start over in the East. Seventh in the East, we have the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, under Tom Allen, Indiana seemed on the cusp of making some sizable waves in the conference before an injury-ridden post-COVID season left IU 2-10. Now, last year, the 4-8 record felt like it could have been worse. Only a late upset over Michigan State prevented the Hoosiers from losing 9 straight to close the year after a 3-0 start. But where does Allen and Indiana go from here? Allen will start by looking for a quarterback, and Tennessee transfer Taven Jackson seems to be the man. Now, John Henderson and Jalen Lucas, they're going to give it a go at running back. Cam Camper is an honors candidate at wide receiver, 46 catches a year ago, and coaches are excited about some of the new players that are set to emerge. Now, only 3 starters return up front, so that's an issue. On the stop side, only 3 starters are back there as well. Top 22 tackler Aaron Casey, he's back at middle linebacker, so Indiana's set right there in the middle. Andre Carter transfers in from Western Michigan to provide quarterback pressures. Another pair of transfers, Kobe Minor from Texas Tech and Jameer Johnson Jr. from Texas, they hope to bolster the secondary. Now, this is an inexperienced team, so the team will take small steps and hopefully solidify things as the season progresses. Indiana opens hosting Ohio State, and that's what fun is that? I mean, that's trouble. But they could win two out of the first 5, we think. They got road trips to Michigan, Penn State, and surging Illinois. That's all trouble. As is seemingly a home game with Wisconsin. It's going to be a tough season for Allen and Indiana, but whether Allen keeps his job will seem to depend on the levels of overall team growth that is on display as the Hoosiers administration and fan base watch the season unfold, but we're looking at about 3-9 for Indiana, last place in the East. 6th place, we have Rutgers. Now, Rutgers is an interesting case. The Scarlet Knights had hoped to strike gold twice in bringing in previously successful head coach Greg Schiano, but he has yet to produce a winning season as he enters his 4th year back at Rutgers. Now, at times, Rutgers has played very well. On other occasions, they appear flat and get blown out. Now, there is talent on what is an experienced team as we enter 2023. Now, Gavin Wimsatt seems to be the man at quarterback. Evan Simon's going to compete. Both saw extensive action in 2022. Now, Kyle Manningy returns after leading the team in rushing, but Samuel Brown is back from injury, and he showed flashes early in the year last year. Johnny Langan is back at tight end, but the receiving corps is inexperienced and counting on Western Illinois transfer Naslem Brantley to produce. The line returns 3 starters. It should be improved. Rutgers has some nice pieces on the stop side, with corner Max Mellon challenging for conference honors. Deion Jennings, the top tackler in 2022, and Tyrone Powell are an active pair at linebacker. Aaron Lewis is a quality defensive end, to be sure. Now, Rutgers opens the conference against Northwestern. That's a program in turmoil. And they later host Virginia Tech, so the opportunity to start 3-0 before visiting Michigan, it exists. Now, road games at Wisconsin, Penn State, and Iowa, plus Ohio State at home, is a rough road to travel for just about anybody, particularly somebody in search of bowl eligibility. Now, we respect Rutgers, but we think they're going to fall just short of that goal in 2023. 5th place in the East, we have the Michigan State Spartans. Now, coming off an 11-2 season, which concluded with a Peach Bowl victory, teams across the nation came hard after head coach Mel Tucker, but he signed a lucrative deal to stay at State there in East Lansing. But in 2022, the Spartans stumbled, failing to make a bowl game. Furthermore, in the offseason, Michigan State has lost several starters to the transfer portal, most notably quarterback Peyton Thorne and stellar wideout Keon Coleman. What is going on? Well, we don't know, but anyway, where are the Spartans heading now? We're going to have to check it out. Now, personnel-wise, Michigan State appears ready to go at quarterback with Noah Kim. And leading rusher Jalen Berger, the Wisconsin transfer, he returns. Now, Trey Mosley, he's the leading receiver returning. He had 35 catches a year ago. They do have a lot of youth at the skill spots. So it is good to know that 4 of the 5 offensive line starters from a year ago return, including great center Nick Samick, who leads the way. Now defensively, there are pieces to work with. Up front, tackle Simeon Barrow is a heck of an anchor there. Top linebackers Cal Halliday and Jacoby Windman are stellar, but the secondary is the issue here. Sophomore free safety Malik Spencer, he could be a future star, so there's something to work with there. Now for the Spartans, after a pair of turnovers, Michigan State is going to face a tough 3-game stretch with home games with top 10 Washington and upstart Maryland, followed by a road game to Iowa. Iowa typically wins at home. Now after a bye, State has road games at Minnesota and Ohio State. That's joining a home contest with powerful Michigan, Nebraska, and a neutral with Penn State. Now that schedule could be worse, so Michigan State does have a chance in our mind to bounce back, but they just look too inexperienced in terms of their offensive production. Therefore, we got Sparty finishing at 5-7 and just missing a bowl once again. 4th place in the East, we have the Maryland Terrapins. Now, for years, it has seemed Maryland was poised to make some real noise. Even when they were in the ACC, they were doing that. Now, the Terps have had some real talent at the skill positions. Plenty of them are in the NFL, but they have failed to get over the hump. Now, Talia Tagovailoa is back at quarterback and primed for a breakout season. Top rusher Roman Hemby, who ran for over 1,000 yards last year, he's back. The top 2 pass catchers from 2022 are back as well. Wide receiver Deshaun Jones had 44 catches. He's an honors candidate. And tight end Corey Dyches, 39 catches. He's a highly utilized weapon for the Terps. But only 1 starter is back on the offensive line. They're going to have to get some help there. So that does sound like an issue to me. On the defensive side, great news. 4 of the top 5 tacklers from 2022 are back, and the unit is stout on the back end. Tommy Aikenbestow seems like a future star up front at defensive end, and Jordan Phillips, who transferred over from Tennessee to jump in there, is going to try it at the nose. Jashawn Barnum and Tarheeb Still are active linebackers for the Terps. But Bo Braid and Dante Trader are stellar safeties and all-conference candidates in that secondary, which is good. Now, Maryland might be 5-0 before heading to Ohio State, where a season-making opportunity exists. Can you imagine them knocking off the Buckeyes? Now, Illinois, Penn State, and Michigan, they're all coming to College Park, which is another huge plus. Maryland is a team to watch. This schedule's favorable. And 8-4 seems more than reasonable if this team stays healthy. Maryland, they're one to watch for sure in 2023. 3rd in the East, we have Penn State. Now, 2023 may be the season where the Lions roar. This is a very strong football team which returns 16 starters. Offensively, it all starts up front for Penn State, where 4 of 5 lineman starters are back, including All-America tackle Olu Fashana. Now, sophomore running back Nicholas Singleton is a future Heisman Trophy candidate at running back and primed to flourish behind this stellar offensive line. The top 2 receivers from 2022 are gone, but Dante Cephas transfers in from Kent State, where he had a great career. He's going to assist. Keandre Lambert-Smith is the top returner. He had 24 catches in 22. Keep an eye on Florida State transfer Malik McClain. Tall and rangy, he can make plays. Now, highly touted 5-star quarterback Drew Aller, he takes over for sure at quarterback, and there's a ton of optimism surrounding him. We'll see how he does. 8 starters are back on a very strong defensive unit. Now, on the line of scrimmage, defensive end Adisa Isaac pesters opposing signal callers, and the Lions welcome in Chop Robinson, who comes in from Maryland. Now, we really like this group. The linebacking core is top-notch, led by active linebacker Curtis Jacobs and all Big Ten Abdul Carter. Now, All-America corner Kalen King. He had 18 pass breakups in 2022. He joins Johnny Dixon and safeties Jalen Reed and Keaton Ellis to form perhaps the nation's best secondary. These guys can flat out play. Now, Penn State was 11-2. They only fell to Ohio State and Michigan. And is that the goal in 2023? I don't think so. I think the Lions are looking for more, and they got the team to do it. Now, they do travel to Ohio State in mid-October, and then they host Michigan in November. Now, that's tough. If they had Ohio State at home, I would probably have them second. But this is a very, very good football team. And if Alar at quarterback is who many think he is, Penn State could knock off one of these, win the big, and find themselves in the college football playoff. Very good Penn State team in 2023. Second in the East, we have Ohio State. Now, the Buckeyes nearly knocked off eventual national champion Georgia in the college football playoff last year. But as we head into 2023, superstar quarterback C.J. Stroud is now in the NFL. Kyle McCord, he seems slotted to take that position over. And there's sure to be some sort of a drop-off at that position. C.J. Stroud is tremendous. But they're looking for good play from McCord, so we'll see what they get. Travion Henderson, he's a stellar running back. And Mayon Williams, he's quality at that position as well. Now, here's where it is really great for the Buckeyes. All-America wide receiver Marvin Harrison. He's the top receiver in the country, period. But the Buckeyes have the nation's best receiving room. It includes Emeka Ibuka, Julian Fleming, and tight end Cade Stover. This is the best group in the country. The offensive line, now, that has some room for improvement. There are 3 starters back. We got Donovan Jackson there. He's a good player, but they do need to get better. Anyhow, on offense, that receiving core, any kind of decent play at quarterback, you know they got good people there. This offense is going to be potent. Defensively, defensive end J.T. Tumuolo and linebacker Tommy Eichenberg, who led the team in stops last year, are both national honors candidates. J.T. wrecked people last year. I mean, crazy. Now, Michael Hall is stout up front, and Steel Chambers is the leading tackler from 2022. He's back at linebacker. The secondary returns intact, with corner Denzel Burke and Lathan Robinson at safety leading the way. Now, Ohio State travels to Notre Dame and Wisconsin. They do host Penn State, that's a key one, and they do travel to Michigan to close. Now, it seems to hinge on the level of quarterback play for the Buckeyes, depending upon what they get there. It will be decent, but it needs to be outstanding for the Buckeyes to reach the playoff once again. We think they're going to fall just short, 10-2 for the Buckeyes. Winning the East of the Big Ten, we have Michigan. Now, the Wolverines, they've got 15 starters returning. They are the favorites to repeat as champions of the Big Ten and get a spot in the playoff. Now, unlike their top conference rivals, Michigan returns their quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, he threw 22 touchdowns against only 5 interceptions last year. He's going to direct an offense that should be really good. All-America running back Blake Corum, he's coming off an injury, but he's back. No worries. They have Donovan Edwards also back. Good grief. Now, Cornelius Johnson, who led Michigan in receiving touchdowns in 2022, he's back, and he leads a talented receiving corps. The offensive line is outstanding. 4 potential all-conference candidates are in this group. Defensively, Chris Jenkins is a force on the defensive line. And the linebacking core is outstanding. Junior Colson, Michael Barrett, and Mike Sanderstil are all stellar. Factor in Nebraska transfer Ernest Hausman. What a group. Rod Moore, Will Johnson. Those 2 guys are going to patrol the secondary. You just never know, folks, but Michigan has been on a roll under Jim Harbaugh, and they seem poised to skate into November before the challenges of traveling to face a very good Penn State team in Happy Valley and then hosting Ohio State in the conference set to determine it. Now, Michigan's a very, very good football team. We think they're going to be right there in the playoff hunt. We do have them winning the Big Ten, not only the East, but the Big Ten. We do got them in the playoff. It's going to be tough in the playoff, but we got them getting there. Michigan, our national number 2 in the preseason, winning the Big Ten. At 7th place and last in the West, we have Northwestern. Now, last year in Ireland, to kick the season off, Northwestern erased a first and second half set of double-digit deficits to upset Nebraska and kick off 2022. But they inexplicably lost each of their remaining games. Some of them even to Division II. What in the world? Now, it seemed to be an important season this year for Pat Fitzgerald, entering his 18th season. But a hazing scandal in midsummer claimed Fitz. He's out. In fact, the whole program is in disarray. Now, big things were not expected from Northwestern, but now, due to this turmoil, a new level of difficulty has arisen for the Wildcats. Offensively, only 4 starters are back, but among the group are folks with starting experience at quarterback, including Cincinnati transfer Ben Bryant. Michigan transfer A.J. Henning should help at receiver. 8 starters return on the defensive side, including the top 4 2022 tacklers led by Bryce Gallagher, who had 100 stops last year. Now, the schedule is rough, including the opener at Rutgers. And with all the turmoil surrounding the program, good grief. Now, we expect Northwestern to win 1 and finish at the bottom of the Big. But for now, it will be keeping the program functional as a search for the new head coach culminates and they get all this turmoil settled down. 6th in the West, we have Purdue. Now it seemed to be inevitable, but Coach Jeff Brom finally left to head back to home for him at Louisville to lead the Cardinals. Now in the bowl, Purdue looked a mess, having had transfers out of the program and running up against formidable LSU. It was a disaster. Now, defensive expert Ryan Walters has jumped in as head coach. He comes over from being a coordinator there at Illinois, and there are quality players to work with. Workhorse running back Devin Maccabee, he's back. And Hudson Card transferred from Texas. He's claimed the quarterback position under new offensive coordinator Graham Harrell, who will implement an air raid style offensive system. Strong safety Sanusi Kane is the top 22 tackler. He returns. But there's not a ton of top-level talent on the stop side. That's Walter's specialty, and he will have work to do there. Fresno State and Virginia Tech are interesting games, potentially winnable. They're the opening games before Syracuse visits. Syracuse is pretty good. Iowa, Michigan, and Nebraska are on the road. Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, and Ohio State are at home. That's a difficult slate. Now, we do expect Purdue to take a step back this fall. They're going to be less potent on offense and still a little troubled on defense. But we think Ryan Walters is a good choice, and we're excited to see what he can do moving forward for the Boilers. At 5th in the Big Ten West, we have Minnesota. Now, the next 3 teams are almost interchangeable. They could tie for this spot in the West, but we're going to go with Minnesota right here because they got some holes to fill. But P.J. Fleck, he's in his 7th year there. He's got a great foundation in place. They might plug these holes a lot better than we think. Now at quarterback, they got Ethan Kaliakmanis. He's much better than most folks know. At running back, Western Michigan transfer Sean Tyler comes in ready to rock. He's going to run behind another talented Gopher line for sure. The receiving room is quality. It includes honors candidate Daniel Jackson, Chris Ottman-Bell, who along with Western Michigan transfer Corey Crooms gives options galore, especially when we factor in potential all Big Ten tight end Brevin Spanford. Now the Gophers are just fine offensively. However, they're going to need to fill some spots on the stop side. Corey Lindenberg, 2nd in stops for the Gophers in 2022. He returns inside at linebacker. Another Western Michigan transfer. Boy, they went over there and got some players there. Ryan Seelig, he's going to fill a spot. At safety, Tyler Newman is a national honors candidate. He's going to patrol that secondary. Corner, Justin Wally, he also excels. Now up front, Jalen Logan Redding and Jaw Joyner will try to apply quarterback pressures while flanking nose tackle Kyler Bow. So talent is not an issue for these Gophers, but the 2023 schedule is. Minnesota opens up hosting Nebraska, who has a new coach, but they are expected to win that game. A road game at North Carolina and their great quarterback, week 3. That's going to be challenging. Michigan visits to close out the first half of the season. Now, after the bye, Minnesota has a road game at Iowa. And that starts a conference flurry, which has home games with Michigan State, Illinois, and Wisconsin, and road games at Ohio State and Purdue. Minnesota's a good football team. They win games. Do you know? They win games. They could They could win 9 of them, but we got them going 7-5. But they're a decent football team. Keep an eye on them. Fourth, we have Nebraska. It seems like a complete restart in Lincoln under Matt Rule after an extremely disappointing tenure by former superstar Nebraska player Scott Frost. Now on offense, a beleaguered offensive line should be improved as the group gets a fresh start and some talented players, most notably Teddy Prochaska, regain 100% of their health. Now behind center, who's an Arizona State transfer, Ben Scott, is Georgia Tech transfer Jeff Sims. He's a former 4-star signal caller who failed to capitalize on his skill set during his time with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Now the running back room, Anthony Grant and Gabe Irvin, they're great. The receivers room looks stacked. They have returning starter Marcus Washington, Virginia transfer Billy Kemp looking for the slot spot, and experienced players in Isaiah Garcia Castaneda and Xavier Betts, who has NFL potential. Watch for freshman top athlete Malachi Coleman to figure in. Now at tight end, former 5-star Georgia transfer Eric Gilbert is getting in there, along with top 4-star recruit Thomas Fedoni, who's been injured ever since getting into Lincoln. So the Huskers have great potential at tight end for Sims to work with. The defense has pieces. Ty Robinson's anchoring the front. They got rush ends Blaze Gunnerson, Jamiri Butler, and Georgia transfer MJ Sherman figuring in there strongly. Now, John Bullock's emerged to complement Nick Henrich and talented Luke Reimer and Rover Isaac Gifford in the middle. The secondary is a strong point of the team with all starters returning. Safety Miles Farmer and Marquise Buford are sure tacklers, while Malcolm Hartzog and Quentin Newsom are veterans at corner. Now, Nebraska opens as a dog at Minnesota, where a great opportunity to set a new tone exists. Now, that game is followed by a very dangerous trip to Colorado, where Deion Sanders has the Buffaloes roaming. Now, Game 5 brings Michigan to town, and the Big Red really needs a winning record after this game. A road trip to Illinois, there'll be a dog there too. With teams that are seemingly down making up the next 3 contests before a homer with improved Maryland, Nebraska's got a chance. They close at Wisconsin and home to Iowa. We think too many things have to mesh for Nebraska to realistically challenge in the West, but a bowl game seems in the cards. 6-6 is logical, but we think Nebraska and Rule are going to pick off somebody, Maryland, Minnesota, somebody score an upset somewhere along the line and finish up 7-5. Third in the West, we have Iowa. Now, for years, Iowa has fielded an elite defensive unit, but has been anemic on offense. And last year, that was that situation on steroids. Now, the quarterback play has been the centerpiece issue, notwithstanding the moribund play calling. Most thought Iowa would make or be forced to make a change on the offensive side of the football, if not the head coaching position, but they did not. Instead, Iowa brought in top-notch quarterback transfer Cade McNamara from Michigan. Now, McNamara is a huge upgrade for Iowa, and he could propel the Hawkeyes to the top of the West. The offense returns a high level of production. Caleb Johnson, he could run for 100 yards, 1,000 yards in 23. Nico Rangani is a great receiver. Luke Lachey is next in a long line of great tight ends the Hawkeyes have employed. And the Hawks even add Eric All, who transfers in from Michigan at tight end. Now, Mason Richmond is the leader of the offensive line, which is very experienced. So for once, we think Iowa has a chance to be potent offensively. Now, corner Cooper DeJean is a national honors candidate, and he leads the defensive unit. Logan Lee at defensive tackle, Joe Evans at defensive end, they're a force up front. And the Hawks also bring in University of Virginia transfer Nick Jackson, who was an all-ACC player at linebacker. Quentin Schultz, he's a hard-hitting safety they got in the secondary. Now, Iowa does go to Iowa State. That's always a tough game. But we like Iowa 4-0 heading to Penn State, where they will be underdogs. Michigan State and Purdue are home before Iowa visits Wisconsin and before hosting Minnesota in a pair of important Western Division contests. Now, the Hawks close at upstart Illinois, and we like Illinois, and at Nebraska. Now, Iowa is better, and they have a chance to win the West, but we think they fall short. We got them at 8-4. Second in the West, we have Wisconsin. Now, Luke Fickles arrived from Cincinnati to take over the Badgers program, which in a stunning move let go of Coach Paul Chryst early in the year last year. Now, Fickell looks the part, and few, if any, are not predicting success. After all, Fickell took a very good Cincinnati Bearcat team to the college football playoff. He's brought in Phil Longo, who has a great reputation throwing the football, and he's going to be the offensive coordinator. Now, transferring in to play cornerback is Tanner Mordecai, who lit it up at SMU. But this is the Big Ten, and Wisconsin runs the ball. Will that change? We doubt it. Braylon Allen is one of the nation's best at running back, so we expect that portion of the Wisconsin tradition to continue under Fickell. In fact, most of the offense is back, including the top 2 rushers and top 3 pass catchers. The offensive line is led by tackle Jack Edwards, and it returns 4 starters. Now, Wisconsin was not great on offense in 2022. They only put up 26 points per game, but they will be better in 2023 on that side of the ball. We're not so sure about on the defensive side of the ball. They lost some key pieces. They do have Mama Nongmeta. He's the top tackler from a year ago. He leads the stop troops. 8 starters are back. Now, CJ Getz is a quality end. Jordan Turner's an all-conference candidate at middle linebacker. And Hunter Wooler and Kamari Latu are a strong pair of safeties. But famed defensive mind Jim Leonard, he's the former Wisconsin player and assistant coach at Wisconsin, he's left. And we have to think that his loss is going to be impactful. Further, Wisconsin is certainly among the best in the West, but are they ascending or are they treading water? Now, since they made the change to get Fickell, we think that the brass thought that they were the latter. So Fickell is going to hit the ascension button and get it going in Wisconsin. Is that going to happen in year 1? Doubtful. Now, a trip week 2 to Washington State, who beat the Badgers last year in Madison, that could still be troublesome. But we do think Wisconsin's 4-0 heading into conference play. Now, a mid-season 3-game stretch is going to speak volumes. They've got Iowa at home. They go to Illinois, and then they host Ohio State. Then they're home to Nebraska. They're at Minnesota, and they close out with these division foes. Now, the schedule has 10-2 staring us in the face, but we think Wisconsin is going to have some issues, so we've got them at 8-4. I don't think we're alone in that line of thinking, but that's where we're at. 8-4, second in the West. They could easily win it, though. Winning the Western Division, we have a surprise. Illinois under Brett Bielema. Now, he has already made drastic improvement at Illinois, and this is no flash-in-the-pan situation. We think Illinois will be right back in the thick of the Western Division. Now, at quarterback, they bring in Luke Altmaier from Ole Miss. Folks, this kid can play. Now, 3 of the top 4 receivers return, led by Isaiah Williams, who has all-conference abilities. Reggie Love is ready to rock at running back. The offensive line is a Bielema specialty, and Isaiah Adams at guard and Justin Pearl at tackle are potential all-conference performers. Now, Illinois will smack you in the face defensively, and they are very nasty up front. Jerzon Newton and Keith Coleman at defensive end are among the nation's best pair of bookends. Gabe Jackas, Tariq Barnes, and Seth Coleman, they form a fierce linebacking crew. Tavion Nelson, he's leading the secondary. Now, if Luke Altmaier plays at quarterback as we expect him to, Illinois might be onto something. Now, how does the schedule look? They have a roadie at a very improved Kansas team in week 2. That's no joke, especially if you're licking your chops for a shot at Penn State, which you get the following week. We think Illinois is 2-1 here. Now, they got a tough Friday night game with Nebraska and then a roadie at Maryland before Wisconsin comes in. So Wisconsin's at home. Road games are at Iowa and Minnesota. They're among the last 4 the Illini play. Guess what? No Ohio State or Michigan. And Penn State and Wisconsin are at home. Only Iowa is a tough road game within the conference. Folks, we got Illinois going 9-3 and somehow coming on top in the West. Well, there you have it, folks. That's our prediction for the Big Ten. We've got the Michigan Wolverines, a national championship contender, winning the East Side. And we've got upstart Illinois under Coach Brett Bielema winning the West in a tight battle with Iowa and Wisconsin. So this should be very interesting. We're watching how it all unfolds. Do let us know in the comments section what your thoughts are on this. We do heavily favor Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. We think they are on their way to the college football playoff. In fact, if Penn State or Ohio State were to somehow emerge in the Eastern Division, we would also have them projected to win the Big Ten championship game. So that's it. Michigan over Illinois in the Big Ten championship game for 2023 in our mind. Drop us a line, drop us some comments, let us know what you think. We'll see you next time.